5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglosh for the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. Let's start with Tom Fishburne today. Brands, hashtag activism, and a time for real reflection. Okay? We have to do something. Our brand needs to take a stand. It's time for real action. We need meaningful change. So let's change the color of our logo and our social media profile for a whole 24 hours. And what prompted this cartoon was Mark Ritson's article, which we covered last week. And it said, and Mark wrote, companies need to become the change they are tweeting about. Walk the walk before you tweet the tweet. And Mark went on to point out companies who market largely to black athletes and then showed their leadership team. And not only weren't there any blacks on the board or even in leadership, there weren't any black athletes at all. I mean, you don't have to have, what you put on a board of directors. I've been on a few, and there's often some really, really talented people. Okay, so you can say, well, we just want the best people, so we're not going to be racist. Because it would be racist if you just went out and found the best black person. Although I really like Condoleezza Rice, which I said last week. But anyway, and she's on the board of the NCAA, which is cool. Really, really qualified, capable person in a lot of fields. So Mark, anyway, tied into him, and I think he had a good point, right? Don't you think? There's a lot of great black athletes that are great businessmen. And there's a lot of great businessmen, too. And there's a lot of great people. I'm a real big fan of Ben Carson. I heard him speak before he got involved in politics, just, as a neurosurgeon. Okay, so then Tom was asked by someone recently why my cartoons are so white. And because he thought he was pretty big on diversity, and then he realized that they are white. And he's a work in progress, and he needs some more time. Well, not that you shouldn't. You can give it a try. But Scott Adams, who does Dilbert, wrote a couple of months ago, because he doesn't color in his characters. Someone else does it, and mostly they know what the colors are. But on a new character, they can color him in however they want. And they colored in someone as a black man who was kind of the butt of the joke, or said something you might interpret as, not all that wise, which happens a lot in Dilbert, and it also happens a lot in Tom Fishburne's, because he's poking fun at advertising and marketing execs, which, according to another article last week, 95% of UK advertising management is white. So if you're going to poke fun at advertising, it makes sense that they're white, Tom. So you can just say, well, we write about what we know. And don't, own it. I mean, just own it. And, Scott said it's really hard to put diversity in a cartoon that makes fun of people. So you say, I'm trying to protect the world from my own stupidity and not offend anyone. That's why, because you can offend the white folk in marketing all you want, right? Do one about me. I'd have a great time with it. Okay, so on that thought, this too shall pass. And this is a popular, I was thinking about this in light of, at the turn of the century, the Germans came a lot. The Italians came a lot. The Irish came a lot. And they were the persecuted masses, right at the time. And my wife said she got called an Italian slang word. I got called kraut. Who is oppressed at one point or another changes, depending on the culture, depending where you're at. Okay? Right? The Chinese were oppressed. The Japanese were put in internment camps. I mean, the Jews have been oppressed many times. A lot of people have been oppressed. It's not funny. I'm just saying it varies. And part of the reason is because we all have cognitive bias, confirmation bias, and we all have our own experience. And you can't get away from that. And we're all some kind of minority somewhere. Men with beards. I don't know. I'm sure there's something I'm a minority in. Well, I was a German, and I got teased about that. But anyway, so it turns out that this expression is one that can make you happy when sad and sad when happy. It comes from a 13th century Persian Sufi poet, it turns out, and that's what the king was asking for. That's where the fable comes from. But Abraham Lincoln made it popular in America. I mean, it was in writing, but it wasn't widely known. And he told this story one time. It said that an Eastern monarch once charged his wise men to invent him a sentence to be ever in view and which should be true and appropriate in all times and all situations. They presented him with the words, "And this too shall pass away." How much it expresses, how chastening in the hour of pride, how consoling in the depth of affliction. And that was by Abraham Lincoln. And not only that, it was an address before the Wisconsin State Agricultural Society in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, September 3rd, 1859. Well documented. And I'm not saying that oppression is ever good. I'm just saying if you slice it fine enough, we can all be offended by something. Maybe we need more forgiveness. Maybe we need more gratitude. That's all I'm saying. I think someone misunderstood my talk the other day, though. They didn't go on to the rest of the story. So let's go on. Okay, and speaking of pattern recognition, here's this LINDAR system. The LINDAR system helped uncover an ancient kilometer-long Mayan structure. Okay, and the theory was that the Mayans weren't very well organized because the pyramids they built were like from 1000 AD or something, which is not modern, but not super ancient, not like the pyramids of Egypt, I think. Anyway, so they had an aerial scan of this area, and it's huge jungle, and you can't see any of this stuff looking at it from the air at all. Okay, but they created a pattern recognition system. Remember, in order to do machine learning, you need a labeled data set to know the patterns. But they're looking for geometric patterns. And what they did was they practiced on existing buildings. And they said, oh yeah, look, we can map that. And we can map buildings underneath a canopy of trees because this penetrates the trees. And look what they found. A kilometer long, a kilometer is a pretty big city, right? And it was lost to modern times until they were able to do the pattern recognition with the lasers penetrating. Now let's talk about a grocer in New York City who pivoted to online sales. Now they had, and a couple of interesting things about this, okay? Grace's Marketplace, one of the really famous little groceries now in New York, and there's another one on Long Island, founded originally by the Balducci family, and Grace Balducci was the son of the original founder of the first real marketplace, grocery store kind of thing, which had a butcher shop and a fish market and household goods and groceries all in one place. And also, I think, had shopping carts and some other stuff. Okay, they decided that they should do this, but they didn't have computer-tracked inventory, so they weren't even like on the UCrop system, which goes back to the early 80s, at least, maybe late 70s. They said, but the trickiest part was not technical, it was cultural, because they wanted to retain the ultimate shopping experience customers came to expect. Like at the Piggly Wiggly, I know the butcher, Pat, and, sometimes he'll tell me, hey, we're going to have a big meat sale this weekend. You come over. Last January, I bought 3 hunks of meat for about $70 a piece, $60 a piece. Some ribeyes, and some New York strips. 3 hunks, 1.25 inch sliced, made 24 steaks. I ate them all. And so they wanted this kind of personalization, even though it was online. So this precluded them partnering with another delivery service. They wanted to be in control of the delivery, in control of the picking and the packing, and in control of the conversation. and that's really important. Our goal is intimacy at scale. What a great concept. Let's scale up intimacy instead of just throwing it all away so we can be efficient. Amazon is not intimate. And they don't know what they're selling. They admit it. That was their main defense against some lawsuits in Pennsylvania, the dog collar lawsuit, which we covered on the show. They said, we don't know what they're selling. We don't even know whether these vendors exist. They ship us products, and then they might disappear. Well, that's a heck of a defense. They're a marketplace. They're not a market. And so the staff take the orders, pack them, and they also can call the customers directly about substitutions or other kind of questions. And probably could actually call and say, hey, we've got toilet paper, if it was a good customer. They partnered with a company called Marketo, which another company just told me on Saturday that they were using, getting rid of their NetSuites and moving to Marketo, which I said, good for you. It's going to work. It's much more flexible for you, and it won't cost you $2,000 every time you ask a question. No offense. That's built for old iron retailers. No wonder they're having trouble. Okay, so they offer a curated assortment of about 1,400 items on their website, and they said it was a great blessing when the city shut down because people were stocking up on essentials. They had day before Thanksgiving type volume for about 18 straight days. Okay, so almost 3 weeks. And it took half the time to process a Mercado order versus phone in or email order. So really good. That's a great story and some great concepts there. Okay, great concepts. You got to be innovating, but intimacy, customer experience at scale. Don't get rid of your best differentiating factor just because you want a website. I worked with a client a couple years ago, and they wanted to recreate, they wanted to do a catalog and an online presence, and every item was the same size. Every item was on a white background and very little copy, almost invisible prices. It had no soul at all. It didn't tell the story at all. It was awful. And guess what? They didn't get any orders. I told them it was awful. They won't get any orders, and they didn't. They only mailed 60 or 70,000 catalogs, but still, they ought to get a few orders. So, find somebody that's done it, and then listen. I'm John Miglosh. Like and share. Your friends will think you're smart. Have a great day. Bye-bye.